But I have to talk about Baker. I picked Baker to beat the Atlanta Falcons, unfortunately, to BRF and Champ's demise, man. BRF, you told me Tampa was going to go without Tristan Wirfs and Chris Godwin. But I also told you the wide receiver, Emeka Ukba, I keep mispronouncing his name.
Emeka Ibuka.
Emeka Ibuka, and they got McMillan, who you raved about last season. I try to tell you, Tampa got weapons, and Baker Mayfield, people keep sleeping on him because they talked about Michael Penix Jr. They talked about Bryce Young, what type of season he's expected to have, and we don't expect much from New Orleans at this point. But my man Baker, the game-winning touchdown pass to Emeka Ibuka, 2 touchdown passes to this young wide receiver. Hot take, sooner or later, don't be surprised if Emeka Ibuka becomes the number 1 wide receiver for Tampa. Considering Chris Godwin's durability history, and even though Mike Evans is consistent, 32 years old, don't be surprised if Emeka Ibuka becomes their number 1 wide receiver for Tampa sooner than later. Bucky Irvin, their offense was loaded, and they had to do it without Tristan Wirfs and without Chris Godwin. Baker Mayfield showed you once again he is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. I give a lot of credit to my main man, undisputed world champ, because we talked about how much Cleveland underestimated Baker, how they treated him, how they said they wanted an adult in the locker room. Baker Mayfield, I don't know if you're not convinced from what you've seen from Baker Mayfield so far. I don't know what to say. The past 2 seasons, back-to-back Pro Bowl seasons, over 4,000 yards. He was in the top category for touchdowns last year. Helped the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win the division twice. Pro Bowl caliber seasons. Tampa is a good enough team. Now, they still got some issues with the defense. Unfortunately for Atlanta, the kicker, missed the game time one. Pretty uncharacteristic because he's known for making those types of field goals. And
that's been pretty characteristic of him the last year plus. He's blown some games for us.
Yeah, but before last year, in the past.
Oh yeah, true. But you can't. I don't. Me being a fan, I can't give him passes for what he did before last season. I can't give him passes.
Michael Penix Jr., to his credit, he played really well. That last drive, you can't ask any more from him on that last drive. But BRF, what are your thoughts on the Buccaneers-Falcons game?
Michael Penix is him. Michael Penix is him. Point blank period. Michael Penix is him. Michael Penix threw for 298 yards. Scored that game time touchdown. But what a lot of people aren't talking about with him on that last drive, even though Younghoe Koo missed that kick, he drove them down with no Drake London, with no Darnell Mooney, with Kyle Pitts basically being your de facto 1, and then with Casey Washington and Kadero Hodge. So Baker didn't. Now Baker stepped up though, but there's no, you can't poo-poo Baker Mayfield. He stepped up when you need to step up. When Michael Penix scored that touchdown made it 2017, you always worry because the Falcons, even though they were pressuring Baker Mayfield the majority of that game and they were getting pressure on him, they weren't bringing him down. They only had 1 sack. Like, Jalen Walker only played so many snaps. James Pierce is a monster. People get ready. James Pierce Jr. is a monster. Get prepared because he had 4 pressures in that game, and ultimately they're going to start turning into sacks. Emeka Ibuka, Ohio State's wide receiver U. I mean, let's stop the noise.
It's Ohio right State's up there with Alabama and LSU.
Yes. I think right now, honestly, in terms of the amount of wide receivers from their respective college making noise, right now Ohio State's wide receiver U. You have Emeka Ibuka, you have Garrett Wilson, you have JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba, I know I'm
Terry
forgetting.
McLaurin.
You have Terry McLaurin. Ohio State, I think right now is wide receiver U. They're wide receiver U. And it's crazy how many really good receivers they have in the league right now. It's insane. And they're about to send another one in the league in the next 2 years in Jeremiah Smith. It's insane what Ohio State's doing as far as the wide receiver position is concerned. Now as far as going back to analyzing the game, yeah, shout out to Baker. Baker did what Baker does. He's efficient. He makes plays with his feet when he needs to make plays. Mike Evans. Hey, shout out to AJ Terrell because Mike Evans was pretty quiet in that game, but Emeka Ibuka basically solidified all of the hype that he was coming in with, being the first round draft pick out of Ohio State. People were like, man, they drafted another wide receiver. He showed you why, because he is the real deal. Um, just that, like, I expected that game to come down to the wire to be a really, really good game, because that's what Tampa and Atlanta has been over the last few years. They battle with each other. It's the NFC South. They battle with each other, and that's what I expected. Yeah, I just hope the NFC South for the next few years is Baker, is Penix. Even though Bryce Young didn't have the greatest first game, I still think he's going to put together a pretty good year. I just hope the NFC South can kind of rise with the quarterback play and really kind of put a name and put a stamp on the league for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years with those three, and pray to God the New Orleans Saints find some competency at the quarterback position, regardless of who they have or who they're going to end up drafting. But yeah, that was a really good game. Really good game. I wasn't honestly first game of the year. It's Tampa. You're playing a good team, so you know what, you can win it, you can lose it. So there's nothing to really be upset about. You just you kind of go back to the drawing board and you kind of figure it out for next week, because you go to Minnesota next week. You go to Minnesota and you saw what they did to Chicago. Chicago dominated the first 3 quarters. Minnesota dominated the fourth. So Atlanta's got to go in there, refocus. But I enjoyed the heck out of that game. But yes, my biggest takeaway from that game, Michael Penix is exactly who we thought he was. Him and Baker Mayfield they're gonna light some scoreboards up when they play against each other. And honestly, I'm excited.
Go ahead, big fella.
Man, you always stealing all the stuff, man. Stealing all the snacks out the freezer, bro. I don't appreciate stuff like that.
Well, I'm
But
sorry, man. I'll leave. There should be some in the back of the freezer somewhere, man. You should be able to find a few. I trust you.
You leaving me, you eating all the good popsicles and leaving me with the push pops. But
No,
Push pops are good. Don't sleep on push pops.
nobody want that ice cream, that hard ass tape on there.
Boy, don't you sleep
He's
on
leaving
that
your
on.
ass
Hey,
with that baking soda. He's leaving your ass
Don't-
with that baking soda.
nah. He need to quit sleeping on that orange sherbet. Is what he need to do. Quit sleeping on that orange sherbet.
Nobody want I used to call them cardboard ice creams. But I digress. Baker Mayfield, man, look, keep doing your thing, man. I know that my team lost, but if it's gonna be against anybody that I'm not really mad about it, Baker Mayfield. All right, cool. Because I just look, the consolation prize is seeing you stick it to Cleveland every time he wins. That's the consolation prize. Seeing him just stick it to them every time he gets a chance. It's beautiful. You know what? That's another story for another day. Because I really think that LSU has the wide receiver but that's another story for another day. I'm not gonna rock the boat too much. I'm loving what they're doing. I love what they did with Bijan, using him in the passing game like they did. I'm loving what they're doing with Bijan. So don't be surprised if he having like a 70 catch season, maybe even more. So love what they're doing with Bijan, man. Love what they did with that offense. Michael Penix Jr. showed showed all the heart in the world to drive down that field and get that touchdown. I mean, put his whole body and his heart on the line in that last drive. It just was not to be. So I'm seeing a lot of things that I do like, man. Hey, let's not forget, man, the most pressures in the NFL by rookies come from where? The Atlanta Falcons. Because James Pierce and those rookies was rushing them. So I'm liking what I'm seeing, man. I know more victories are for minor league coaches, in the great words of Sean Carter, but the thing is, I'm liking what I'm seeing as far as how they're using Bijan, how they're using how the other wide receivers are being used, how Kyle Pitts was being used, how they're able to incorporate Tyler Aguilar in a lot of different things. So yeah, I'm liking what I'm seeing with Atlanta. I'm waiting to see how they're going to incorporate in and bring it in as a whole. We all know the first game of the season is always you going out there and getting hit. You know, that's what we used to call as athletes the hit game, man. That's the hit game. Let's go out here and get these jitters out of the way, run the offense the best way we can, try to win the game. But this is the first game of the season. So I'm liking what I'm seeing out of Atlanta. But, you know, Baker Mayfield, I would love to see him being put in MVP conversations as well later on in the year. I know we all love Josh Allen, Lamar, but if he was to win that MVP, and on top of that, win a bowl, win that just that'll put the cherry on top of not only, you know, him validating he was the right guy for Cleveland, but, you know, him being the first overall pick. Because remember, at one point people were calling him a bust, although anybody with eyes knew that wasn't his fault what happened in Cleveland. But liking what I'm seeing on both teams, man. Can't argue. Look, I'm gonna say this before we move on. Ladies and gentlemen, every team that keeps stacking up on wide receiver, every team is not Detroit of the 2000s. I know that seeing wide receivers, seeing teams like Tampa pick wide receiver after wide receiver in the draft kind of makes people cringe a little bit because everybody remembers the debacle that happened in Detroit. You know, one year they picked Charles Rogers. The next year they picked Mike Williams. The next year they picked another wide receiver, and they finally got it right. They finally got it right when they picked Roy Williams, and then he was brilliant for about a year or so. Then they moved on from him, and they finally got Megatron. Every team is not the Detroit Lions of the early 2000s when it comes to picking wide receivers. Tampa Bay, every time they drafted one, they got it right. They've got it right. So, you know, hey, I know we kind of cringe when we see a team kind of stacking up on wide receivers, but hey, when you got a quarterback like Baker Mayfield, and you know you're going to be airing the ball out like a ceiling fan, you gotta get the wide receiver that he can get the ball to, man. This ain't nothing new. He's been airing it out like that ever since he was in college. So you got to get him the weapons so you can stick to his strengths. So I have no problem with them picking wide receivers. Like I stated, this is not a Matt Millen run football team, and these wide receivers that the Tampa Bay Bucks are drafted, they can play. They can play.
It goes to show you that coaching and culture, and Baker has found that in Tampa. They have completely rejuvenated his career. Sean McVay before Tampa did also a good job with him as well. That just tells you the importance of coaching. The offensive coordinator, who's now the head coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars, he's working with Trevor Lawrence. So if he can get the most out of Baker Mayfield, we would like to expect that from Trevor Lawrence, considering the hype he had coming out of college. Remember, he was projected to be the next Andrew Luck. And with Baker, man, he's loaded with talent and weapons, and he has a strong enough arm. Baker's not the most mobile athletic quarterback, but he's more mobile than given credit for.
Yeah.
And Bucky Irvin, and again, they did it without Tristan Wirfs. So imagine with Tristan Wirfs coming back. And Todd Bowles, he's done his part keeping Tampa steady. So you got to give credit to this team. But Atlanta, I loved what I saw from Michael Penix Jr. What you saw was a glimpse of what he could potentially be. And this is why they drafted him. I'm not saying he's going to be the next, but if there's anything for Atlanta fans to fantasize about the second coming of Michael Vick, it's him. Not just because of the fact that he's left-handed, but coming out of college, obviously a better passer than Michael Vick, but he can move. Not as athletic as Vick, but still athletic enough. And with him and Bijan and with Drake London, the X factor to me is Kyle Pitts, because this is a make it or break it year for him. And the defense, how they going to be, again, because now Matthew Judon is no longer there anymore. But I love what I saw from Atlanta, and this is going to be a really exciting season.